My name is Debbie Moore, and I'm with Advisors with Purpose. I'd like to welcome you to tonight to this webinar covering 8 mistakes not to make in your estate plan. And let me apologize for the technical glitch that we had this evening. We have about 20 minutes set aside for this topic, and then we'll leave some room at the end to answer any general questions you may post during the webinar. I am recording today's session, so in the next few days, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording for you to be able to review the presentation again or share with your loved ones. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Aaron Rustin. Aaron is the president of Purpose Financial Corporation. Hopefully you had a chance to read his bio in the invitation to this webinar. He has significant experience in the financial world, and in addition to his private practice, Aaron recently joined our team of professionals at Advisors with Purpose, helping God's people manage God's assets to advance God's kingdom. Aaron, over to you.
There we go. Thank you so much, Debbie. I appreciate that. I am honored to be part of Advisors with Purpose and working with these wonderful people. Over the 34 years or so that I've been involved in this industry, I've seen a lot of great times, and I've seen, unfortunately, some times that were less fortunate for people. But I believe that we can really take control of some of those circumstances and make a difference simply by the decisions that we make as we move along. If it's okay, I'm just going to open in prayer, commit this to the Lord. Pray for wisdom, direction, and clarity as we move through this and we work together. Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for each person on the line here tonight. I pray today that wisdom would come forth, that clarity would be brought forth as well. And I pray that these matters would be taken to heart, that you might be glorified and your kingdom moved forward in the way that you would want it to. Thank you again, Lord. We commit it to you in your name. So as Debbie has said, my name is Aaron Rustin, and I am delighted to be with you here tonight. What I say with each one of our clients as we get started, whether I'm doing it or one of my associate brokers are doing it, is I ask people, what would your financial autobiography look like? That's what I say to my clients, meaning, would it be a drama, a horror, thriller, action, comedy, apocalyptic, or a tragedy? If you were to actually write your story, it's definitely not fictional, because each one of us are living our reality. And you know, the thing is, what story are you writing? Because you're not only penning it from the beginning, you can also has a say to what each chapter brings forward. So as we look at these wonderful instruments here, we have the Stealth up top, and we have a Lamborghini Elemento, we have a Ford Raptor, and then we have a Harley Davidson. Even though each one of them are specialized in their area, what do each of these have in common? Well, each one of these have a designer and a blueprint to assure their proper function and achievement of objective. So should our life be, with a plan. The Bible says we're building on a firm foundation. Matthew 7:24-26 says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, puts them into practice, is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine, does not put them into practice, is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. A lack of a blueprint or a plan in our life can keep us from achieving our objectives and full potential. And the sad part is, I see it every day. I'm sure you've heard the old cliche saying is, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Even though we can say, yeah, I've heard that before, there's not a more statement that's more accurate in what could really bring about the outcomes in our life. So who owns what we are entrusted with? The first thing that we have to grasp is, who does own what we have? Because you see, the way we perceive what we have will dictate as to how we treat what we have, and are we being good stewards and caretakers of all we've been given. So Psalm 24:1, the earth and everything on it belong to the Lord. Galatians 1:16 and 17, everything was created by him, everything was made for him. So you see, we don't own it. We're stewards, we're caretakers. And we are going to be held accountable for those things that we did not take proper care of. So, 8 mistakes not to make in your estate planning. I know there are many beyond this, but we're going to just touch on 8 from here, and we'll go from there. And I hope, again, that it helps us as we're listening to see kind of where we can take it. So number one, not making a plan or trying to operate within an unrealistic plan or not understanding the one we have. Unrealistic plans would be the person that says, I've never set money aside in any way, but you know what? In the next 2 years, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with a study that was done a number of years ago where 10% of the people responded that they believed that a lottery was going to play a large portion of their retirement. In Canada as well, in that same study, 2.5% felt that a large legal settlement was going to be part of their long-term planning. Realistic? Don't think so. Then there are the ones that have one set up that maybe they've had an advisor lay down things for them, but they've never really grasped, what is this all about? Is it meeting my objectives? Is it moving me towards really what I want, or am I being dictated to? The fallout from our lack of a plan can extend far beyond the impact of our bank balance. For instance, lack of communication, not having a plan that everyone around us understands, or making moves without clarity can actually lead to other issues. And I'm not going to ask, has anyone ever been in this circumstance? But I love this one. It says, welcome back, sir. Are you planning on being our guest for one night only, or will this be your usual extended stay? How many of us have found we've made a decision, a financial decision, we didn't maybe make sure it fit within a plan with our spouse or our significant other, and boom, something happened and you were literally in the doghouse. The Bible says, make plans, be wise. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 21:5. Creating a plan. Now, you know what is really, really cool, if I can use that terminology about Canada, is our tax laws actually say that we have a choice where whether we can give it to loved ones, Canada Revenue Agency, and administrative costs, or to charity. Which direction will you choose? And I talk about a hypothetical 10-chapter Canada Revenue Agency book. Chapter 1 to 5 tells us that the things, if we do this, we're going to get slapped. We can't do that. But no one reads, or very few read, from chapter 6 to 10. And those are then that hypothetical book, the chapters that say, you know what, but if you do this, then it will mitigate or maybe completely remove the negative impact of that illustration in chapters 1 to 5. So you need someone that you're going to work with. You need a plan that's going to help you explore into those chapters 6 to 10. Number 2, not having a will. Ensure an enduring power of attorney or a medical directive and other documents such as shareholder agreements, farm business succession plans, special directives are in place. Assure that you have the proper type of a power of attorney. Now, an enduring power of attorney, now it's called different things in different provinces. So depending where you're at, you may have a slightly different name. But a normal power of attorney is crazy, but will actually become null and void if you reach the point of mental incapacitation. So what you've done is you've actually wanted someone else to take care of your stuff. You can't take care of it. They can't take care of it. We have then the courts maybe deciding what's going to go on. So these key elements are very important in your planning moving forward. You can have the best laid out plan, but if you don't have a will to give direction, you will possibly run into some real issues. So I say, where there is a will, there's your way. Why do I need a will? Well, it's a more orderly and quicker settlement of your affairs. Settlement of corporate matters, can avoid unnecessary taxes or problems, gives direction for care of minor children or minor grandchildren, as an example. One of the biggest decisions my wife and I made after we had children was we redid our will, of course, on an ongoing basis. We had to decide if something happened to us, who would we want to raise our children? So those are big, big decisions. Appointment of your executor and trustee, payment of outstanding debts, funeral instructions, opportunity to help your charity, and assists in cases of second marriages. We see more and more families now where people are on their second, third marriages. There are children from 2 different marriages coming together. A will help sort all of that out and save some possible hurting. Now, what if you don't have a will? Well, it's called dying intestate. And really at that point, if you don't make the decision where things are going to go, the courts will. So the Intestate Succession Act governs that if you pass away without a will, this is kind of the order that you go through. Each province and territory may be a little different, but your money first and your assets go to spouse and children. If no children, spouse only. If no spouse, then all the children. If no spouse and no children, then to your parents. If no spouse, children, or parents, then to brothers, sisters. No spouse, children, parents, brothers, sisters, to nieces and nephews. You know, those people that possibly bothered you all the time at Christmas, they're going to inherit your stuff. If none of the foregoing, then an equal share to the next of kin and equal degrees of consanguinity as to the intestate. So making sure again that things are done in the proper way will save you. May be walking streets of gold, but there may be a true issue left behind. In the event that the deceased has no heirs at law, the estate passes to the crown. So again, 100% of Canadians have plans. However, 55% of those will be designed by the courts. It still surprises me how many people don't have wills or plans in place. It's an integral part of any structure. Your will is your last statement. What do you want everyone to hear? And never assume your family will distribute your assets as you would have. I've had people say to me over the years, well, you know what? My children know that we love to give to this charity and we love to give to that. When we pass away, they're just going to know what to do. Well, possibly they will, but you know what? The possibility also of them not going exactly the way that you had wanted to go is very high. So dictate, take control, even when you're, as I say, walking streets of gold, because you have the right to do so. Number 3, no list of locations of important documents, legal, financial advisor information, etc. Make sure your executor knows where it is. Because in that time of emotional turmoil, things have changed for people. You need clarity, you need direction, and it's a very simple thing to do. And Advisors with Purpose, I believe, have a document that can allow you to itemize where everything is. You get a copy to your executor and to your children. It can even be in a sealed envelope if you want to go to your children or whatever, so they don't see it until you pass away. Entirely up to you, but order is necessary. Number 4, outdated beneficiary designations and asset ownership. Life changes. Your company is worth more, your house is worth more, your investments are worth more, or after the last few days in the market, maybe less overall. But it's very important to make sure that the people you want to get the assets you have do indeed get them. You must review and update on a regular basis to address life's changes. Grandchildren come along. Maybe suddenly a new charity comes into your life that you believe in, or one has no longer exists. Maybe you want to change things around. Make sure that you're always updating these facts. Makes a huge difference. So changes to tax law, family dynamic, and other can greatly alter outcomes. The Lord giveth, and Canada Revenue Agency taketh away. That's often what we feel. But you know, as we said from the very beginning, our tax system is actually designed that you can dictate as to where your money goes. It can go to loved ones, CRA, or charity, or a combination of all of those. But probate and taxes are not considered is a number. Number 5, one of the biggest things that I see people come against a pitfall in their overall planning. So probate, what is this wonderful thing? Well, it's a process of legally validating a will. Legal fees and other costs associated with the settlement of an estate will be an additional cost absorbed by your estate, thus taken away from loved ones and charity. That's how we have to look at it. Where did we want things to go? Did we want it to go to CRA? Did we want it to go to our lawyers and accountants? Or do we want it to go to our loved ones and charity? A plan, a properly structured plan, a thought out plan will help you to meet your needs. They are different in each province, probate fees, but can be quite substantial. For example, in Saskatchewan, the fee is $7 in every $1,000 of value passing through your estate. Some of the other provinces are much higher. Your estate advisor can provide you with more information. So if you're going to have a consultation with one of the estate advisors, they'll be able to walk through this with you because it can make a huge financial difference. How do we minimize probate? Well, we can put joint tenancy names on things. I don't need to go into a bunch of detail. Sounds good, may save a couple of dollars as far as probate, but there are some possible inherent risks with that of claims possibly made against your assets by the people that you now put on there, okay? So if there's a claim against your son or your daughter and they're joint with you, your assets may be at risk. Assets with named beneficiaries, successor holders, such as on your life insurance policy, RSPs, segregated funds, tax-free savings accounts, all of those will bypass probate, go directly to who you want it to. Passing assets while still alive is a wonderful way. Trust or other legal structures implemented. Very complex topic. Again, you can get some direction from the advisors, the estate advisors, they would love to give you some help on that side to help you kind of get some clarity as to where you want to go. Income tax paid. Now, most times people will pay a lot more in income tax than they will in probate, but there are ways too that we can mitigate that incredible tax bill that often comes at the other end. Certain investments you have, Canada Revenue Agency wants to take up to 50% of it because they gave you a tax savings up front. Now they want, pardon the terminology, their pound of flesh. They're going to take up to 50% of everything, and it actually drives up the taxable position on all your other investments possibly too. So what we want to know is RSPs will roll on a tax-deferred basis to your spouse. Consider naming a charity as partial secondary beneficiary. So what that means, if your wife has predeceased you or your husband has predeceased you, charity as a contingent or secondary beneficiary can now receive those benefits, and the tax receipt that they're going to receive for that donation will offset the tax payable back to your estate. Capital gains taxation, you're taxed on 50% of growth on investments, commercial property, company shares, etc. The wonderful thing about our tax laws, they made some changes a bit ago that if you were to donate publicly traded investments or the like to charity in kind, so you don't cash them in, you actually give it in kind, you cannot have, you'll have a full tax receipt for the market value, but you'll have no tax payable on any gain. Remarkable. Number 6, not giving some away while you're alive. Let it go and watch it grow is what I tell people. Giving cash gifts while you're still alive may reduce the overall tax burden and probate on your estate when you die. When you give cash to an adult children, there are no taxes payable either by you or your child, okay, while you're alive, okay? And also at death, we'll touch on that. Making a gift of capital assets such as property, shares, business assets, may create tax payable as a disposition. So again, some good planning with a solid advisor will make a huge difference. Number 7, failing to pass assets in the most efficient and effective way. So spouses, minors, charities, adult children. And I tell people, not all beneficiaries are created equal. So for instance, we may have a parent that has 3 children. We'll call them Wink and Blink and a Nod for the sake of names. We have 500,000 in RSP, we have 500,000 in property, we have 500,000 in open investment, and each one of those kids are saying, you know what, they're going to get one of these. Well, you know who just had a windfall there was the RSP/RIF person. They're going to get all of that money out of there when the parent dies, but all the tax is going to come back against the estate. So Winkin and Blinkin, who got the other 2 assets, are not going to be too pleased with Nod because of the way that it's structured. A good advisor will help you put those things together. So how do we pass some of these assets? Cash, tax-free savings account to family, no tax. Capital property includes cottages, securities, stocks, bonds, lands, holdings, those types of things. Can roll over effectively to your spouse with no tax payable. When they roll, however, to this generation down, there could well be some tax payable. Historically significant or certified ecological properties, transferred to charity possible. Tax credit consideration, no taxable position realized on gains. Registered investments to your spouse can roll tax deferred. It's not tax free, it's tax deferred. Or if you put it onto charity, the donation will offset the tax payable. Just some good planning. It works out very, very well. I put a little note here. Appreciated non-registered public traded investments. A spouse transfers at your cost and taxable position is deferred until their death. If we transfer that share, as we said just prior, in kind to the charity, to a charity, there's no tax payable on gains, full tax credit for market value. Wonderful, wonderful way to work with your estate and again to choose where your assets go. So what if we just very quickly, what if we had those shares, okay, or those mutual funds or those types of investments? Example, we purchased 1,000 shares at $20 per share. We sell them at $50 per share, and our personal tax rate is 40%. We have a capital gain of $30 per share. The taxable portion is $15 or 50% of that. If we donated them in kind, in comparison to cashing them in and then giving them cash, here's the difference. So the gift to charity, we sell of shares and cash donated. Yep, charity's going to get 50 grand. Your tax savings is $16,915. But what if we transferred those shares in kind? Same benefit, 50,000. You know what? You had tax savings of close to 22,000, a potential extra $5,049 for loved ones. instant advantage to you, and really all it took was a little bit of a plan. Number 8, not planning for the unexpected. I know life happens. I see it all the time. Over the 34 years I've been in this industry, I've had many surprises. Clients sitting at my desk a day later, unfortunately, they're gone, okay? And we have to deal with those things. But people hesitating to deal with life insurance, estate preservation structures not in place, like disability, critical illness, health coverages. We have to make sure that should we pass away, that debts, tax payable, have to be addressed. They may not be if you didn't put a plan together. Immediate family's provision unaccounted for. You may have small children, educational costs. You may be the sole breadwinner, the higher breadwinner in the family. If you're to pass away, where is that money going to come from to make sure that your family is taken care of? Key things. Business succession. Over the last number of years, we work more and more with large corporations and farming operations. It is very important that we have some type of a plan in place to make sure the Canada Revenue Agency and the other powers administrative costs that be only get what they're entitled to. So what is the summary here? I know I've gone through a lot of stuff, and it really is just the tip of what you can do. A good estate advisor will go through these things with you in detail according to your particular situation. So what not to do? Not making a will, not making a plan, not having a will, no list of locations, outdated beneficiary designations, probate and taxes not considered, not giving while living. I like that, that's catchy. Failing to pass assets effectively, not planning for the unexpected. So what do? Well, we create a plan. Get your will in place. Now, that plan that you create doesn't have to be this big, extraordinary, over-the-top, multi-$1,000 cost plan you put together. Simply having a plan, sitting down with your advisor, talking to an estate advisor can help you put that in place. Get your will in place. People have asked me, hey, what about a will kit? Should I just go get a will kit? Those things, you know what? Will kits can be okay, but legalese changes, and you want to make sure always that anything you put into your will actually has your needs being met. Make a list, talk to your executor, check beneficiaries and registrations, review ownership, get advice on things. Don't be afraid to go out and talk to professionals. If you feel intimidated by someone, or in some way you feel like they're talking down to you, you know what? You can go to another advisor. That advisor works for you. They're effectively on your payroll. So you can go out and you can choose who you want to work with. Consider lifetime gifts. Give it away now. Watch it grow. Donations. Choose best assets for beneficiaries. Giving RSPs to maybe where they should be most effectively treated and transferred. Review insurance and trust needs. So where are we? Loved ones, CRA, charity, you have a choice, and our tax rules and an estate design says so. You don't have to just simply say, I'm just going to let it fall where it may. Which direction have you chosen? Now, chosen on that. All information and illustrations provided are based on current rates and rules applicable, which may change over time. The strategies shown may not be applicable to everyone, as each individual case will vary. It is recommended professional legal and financial advice be sought prior to the implementation of any structure. Back to you, Debbie.
Very good. Thank you, Aaron, for all this wonderful and a lot of information. So where do we go from here? Something Aaron said may have triggered a question, or you may want to know more about the process, or this is exactly what you've been looking for. In the next few days, you'll receive an email from Tanya Rust, who is with Advisors with Purpose. It'll actually appear in your email as trust@advisorswithpurpose.ca with an invitation for you to have your own personal consultation with one of our estate advisors. It's important to know that all meetings are done on the phone, so you don't have to leave your house to speak to the advisor. They are completely confidential. They will never sell you any product, and they are free. I would encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. As mentioned at the beginning, you'll also receive an email from me. It will come across as Debbie at Advisors with Purpose that will include a link to tonight's webinar. And so for those that came in late because of our technical glitch, you'll be able to hear the beginning of Aaron's presentation. So we'll take a few minutes and answer. There's a couple of questions that came on, Aaron. Actually, I think you answered them in the last couple of slides, but the one says, phew, this is a lot of information. I don't know what applies to me. How can an advisor with purpose help me? And what will the cost be?
Well, the cost to the individual speaking to the estate advisor is nothing. There is no cost to the person that's talking to you, which is kind of nice because if you think about it, in an industry where advice is usually charged very high or commissions are paid, it's nice to be able to talk to someone who's unbiased and can give true information with nothing to gain from that individual. So there's no cost directly to the person talking to the estate advisor.
Okay, great. The other question says, if we don't have a large estate beyond a family home and some life insurance, what would the reason to do an estate plan? It seems like a simple will would suffice.
Well, you know what? I guess I guess an estate plan can be anything as just a will. Okay, it can be, the will can be your estate plan. We deal with lots of senior people that they, of course, they've sold their home at this point. They're maybe living in some, they're getting some special care or whatever. They don't have a bunch of assets, so they don't necessarily need a big plan. That being said, talking with a good, solid estate advisor can help you to help those charities when maybe you didn't realize you could, and can show you some advantages from a tax perspective, as well as possibly, because of giving to charity, maybe even give a bit more back to your loved ones in doing that. So not necessarily a big elaborate estate plan, but just talking to someone that give you some direction can even save that person that maybe has just their home, so to speak, a little bit of money set aside or whatever. It can make a big difference to have input from a professional.
Good. And the final question, how often should I revisit my will?
I recommend, we tell our clients at least once every 3 to 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to rewrite the entire will or whatever, but sometimes life changes, as we said in one of those slides. Maybe grandchildren come along, or your business has grown, or your assets have grown substantially, or those things. So anytime that there's a significant change or any type of change, we ask our clients, we work with them to actually go and do an evaluation of where they're at, see if their wishes still go along with it. In fact, what we often do too, when it comes down to the design of a will, and people say, well, how much should I leave to charity? How much should I do that? We often say, hey, why don't you do this? Rather than putting a dollar amount down, why don't you put a percentage? And the reason we do that is, so let's say today I'm worth $100,000, and I wanted to give 5%. A few years from now, 10, 20 years from now, I'm worth $1 million. If I only put $5,000 down and I'm worth $1 million, possibly I wanted to give more. So a person can put percentages inside their will, and it tends to keep things level on all fronts. That can be changed at any time. That's the neat thing about a will. You can change it when you want. You don't have to change the whole thing. You can just do what they call a codicil, which can change certain paragraphs. So that's entirely 3 to 5 years, or if there are any changes that come along in one's life.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone, for your participation this evening. We look forward to connecting with you in the coming days. And that's it for this evening's webinar. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thanks.